You, Kiner. I'm going to start off on page 69 in your budget book, but in your board packet for this afternoon. The memorandum that comes from Marcia to the board that just gives a high-level narrative for the budget for fiscal year 26. I am not going to read the full document. I'm going to highlight the specifics that comment on changes in the budget specifically. So starting with essentially the second paragraph, our budget for 26 is 18.9 million, which reflects a 5.4% increase over the amended budget for fiscal year 25. And it supports the recommendations from our strategic plan, reflects the current approved budget for providers, and includes funds for an increase in financial administration and program operations. I'll drop down to revenues. Clearly, the budget continues to fund the trust operations. We did discuss with the Finance Committee a little over a week ago, and in terms of speculating on the millage, the property tax values and the related millage rate. And the decision was to continue with our current millage rate that we have today in fiscal year 25, so 0.45 mils. And we'll cover that in some detail in a few pages. That will generate nearly $700,000 in incremental revenue for the trust, an increase of 6.9% over this current fiscal year budgeted tax revenue. Includes 525,000 in interest revenue, so higher than what we've budgeted in the past. But we feel confident we'll at least meet that number, if not exceed it. You look at the next page, page 70, grants and aid. The budget is at 13.6 million to support the community and its providers. This includes a 5% cost of living increase to address inflationary growth. I will just say as a footnote, it's not an across the board 5% increase. It is for currently funded programs that will receive a 5% increase. I'll give you a simple example. For summer camp, those are all new from an RFP, and those do not include a 5% cost of living increase. The component of the budget also accounts for 1.8 million in commitments from fiscal year 24 fund balance and 770,000 in unallocated commitments, commitments from unallocated funding in fiscal year 24. In terms of our personnel budget, it grew by 10.9% to 2.2. The majority of that driven by a proposed 6% increase in staff salaries. That's split in two. 2.9% for cost of living increase for all personnel, and then a 3.1% merit increase for personnel. The estimate we got from the county on increase in fringe is 3%, and the budget doesn't include one full-time position addition and one part-time position. Also comment that there were a handful of market adjustments that were made for existing personnel in the course of fiscal year 25 that are also reflected in there. From an operations perspective, operation expenses, it's actually down from fiscal year 25 budget by about $33,000. So staying pretty steady with operating expenditures and fully acclimated into being in a new building that we own and the costs associated with that. We also include a reserve for capital of $200,000. That's the same that we did for fiscal year 25. So that's the premise there is if we had something related to the building that needed a replacement. We have 6 air conditioning units. They're of varying ages. 1 or 2 of those dies in the course of a year. We've got resources to take care of maintaining our capital investment. So from there, I'll ask you to turn to page 75. And this is an update on our organizational chart for the Children's Trust. We've restructured it, so to speak, just because the way we are staffed today has shifted. But otherwise, they reflect what you're familiar with in terms of the finance and administrative side of the house, the program operations, which falls under Christie, and then all of our contracted services with various providers, including the county. I will footnote, so you can see under the executive assistant and clerk of the trust, there is an administrative receptionist position. That is one request for an incremental FTE for the trust. There are 2 primary components to that position. One is to maintain this space and the people that use this space, coordinating the calendar, requests for use of the space. It's clear that we've got a lot more foot traffic in the building, especially with Guardian Ad Litem that has joined us. Originally, Guardian Ad Litem had selected using one of their back doors as their primary entrance. What ended up happening, which I think it could be anticipated, everybody comes to the front door. So the number of packages we have that get delivered, people that drop by to speak to either us or to Guardian Ad Litem, volume has increased. And there are administrative responsibilities that help support Katura in particular in her clerk of the trust role that is important. The other key component that I will comment on relates to our audit for 24 and 25, which has to do with separation of duty. So the very simple way to explain this is things that come through the mail that are either invoices, but in particular revenue. So we get checks from the county to pay for rent is one example. There are some small ones where we have some reimbursement for ad revenue for our parents playbook, sorry, would be an example. There are also invoices, expenditures that come through the mail. There are expenditures that we reimburse for our vendors in the community that come through invoice at Children's Trust. Part of this administrative role is to account for all of those. So I'll give you an example. We get a rent check from the county that gets logged at the front desk before it makes its way to the finance team, at which point it gets deposited, the revenue gets journal entry, and then I approve it. So that having somebody separate that is receiving those income items is a key component of separation of duties that was in 24, not an issue in 25 because we had implemented that, albeit a temporary position. Just give you a little background on that particular request. There's one position under the chief operating officer that is not on here. It will be on the personnel chart that we will show you. Is a part-time position for marketing and communications that needs that kind of support. At any rate, that's an update on the organizational structure, at least from a table perspective. You're always welcome to ask any questions at any point. From there, I'll turn us to page 80, and here's where we'll kind of, as Marcia would say, talk about the guts of the budget. Yes.
The director of marketing communication.
Correct.
So if you all will remember, Kirsten had a baby.
Right.
She has decided to stay home with her baby.
Part-time person to support that role.
Yeah, that's correct. But you'll see it on the table, the personnel table that's in another.
Oh, another section. Okay, all right. And then I see that there is a contract manager, program specialist that are also vacant.
Correct. What? Yeah.
Right.
Advertising. Oh, okay.
That's relatively recent, about 3 weeks ago.
I mean, to
For
Point,
holdovers
we've
from
got-
last year.
we've got four pretty significant vacancies and about to have us.
Oh. That one's like, not that y'all not important, but that one is what's causing me the angst because
Yeah,
it's
me
so
too.
hard now to really find good accounting staff, you know,
Yeah.
skilled staff, and ours is at the district is getting ready to leave.
Yeah, if I'll take this as an opportunity just to give an update for the finance committee. We'll talk about this at the full board meeting too. One, we've Danielle Towery, who is our HR executive through James Moore. She and I have reviewed the candidate pool, so that position's been posted. About a dozen good applicants, if you will, qualified, I guess I would say. Of those, we agreed on 4 that she is phone screening this week. I think there are 2 good candidates in that pool. And she and I will review that at the end of the week and do a follow-up with Marcia. The other thing I'll comment on is Marcia and I have talked about agreed on a transition plan where while I won't be physically present, I will still be helping to support the trust in a couple of different ways. One, weekly paying the bills, because that still needs to happen. So provider and other vendor invoices that we get, I will continue to help to support. And things that are related, journal entries, things of that nature that I will still, pardon me?
That's good.
Yeah, that I will still
Virtually?
be, yes, correct. Yes, from Maryland, that's good, yeah, 832 miles away.
Right.
One good use of Zoom.
Yes, correct. And I will participate in the search committee for the replacement, the CFO replacement. And over the course of June, July, August, what I just described in terms of just maintaining daily financial operations weekly. I will have touch bases with Christy and Marcia, especially when it comes to the finance and administration team. In fact, regularly, weekly, I will be in touch with Nicole and Tara, who have the primary responsibilities from a payroll accounting perspective. And then the intent, our intent, is we've identified and hired a candidate going into August. And I will still be around in August to cross-train that individual. Certainly more than the roughly 4 hours of training I got before I was thrown into the deep end. So there's a plan that we've outlined. It's like I have said to Marcia, it's important to me and to her that we maintain the momentum we have built around our finance infrastructure and progress we've made so we don't backslide there. Nicole, Tara and I met with Purvis Gray last Thursday. So that's Heather Donovan and Ron Whitesides, to engage them in support in the month of June and July. Clearly, there are boundaries on what they can't do, right? But it is to kind of look over our shoulders to make sure we are understanding some of the mechanics on how journal entries hit our books with things like due to, due from that happen in the background, so that when we make a journal entry, we don't create a separate issue, which is some of what has kind of just accumulated over the years and what we've been trying to correct in a very short period. But I think worth noting, and I'll make similar comments for the full board meeting.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mark, for having that plan in place.
No, thanks, Scott, because he didn't have to agree to do this, starting a
Yeah, the heaviest lift to me is in August and cross-training somebody. It just turns out August in academic medicine is what they call the 13th month. And it's quiet, people are on summer vacation, and I feel comfortable that I can do what I'm committing to and make sure my replacement gets cross-trained.
13th month for you, all, for 9th month for here, because I headed right into fiscal year end, you know?
Yeah, and headed right into trim and.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like-
Yeah, which would, whoever replaces me needs the right orientation around that. Nicole's a big part of making that happen as well. So I feel like we've got a good plan.
Okay, page 80.
Page 80.
All right.
So starting from the top, early last week, I think it was Wednesday, actually, we got the preliminary adjusted gross taxable value from the property appraiser's office. So it's not a final number. I do have a sense it might go up some, which would not be a bad place to be in. So when we look at the difference for 25
It's
versus,
a full 7%.
yeah, and this is less than 7% right now. So a 1.1,
quibble yet.
not yet.
Get ready, guys. I know what this attitude is like.
You know where this is going,
I'm gonna let them fight. I ain't fighting this one. I'm sitting this one out.
Not much different.
So a total of 1.1 roughly billion in increase in taxable revenue for property. If we apply the 0.45 millage rate that we have this year, that's the roughly 700,000 increase in revenue, 6.9% over our budgeted tax revenue for 25, which I think we will exceed the budgeted tax revenue for 25. So in terms of millage rate, you can see the breakout, what the proposed is versus maximum. The rollback rate would be set at 0.4082. So even at that rate, if we had to do back, it would not be a substantial impact from a trust perspective. And then you can see what the trend has been over time, fairly consistent, I would say, in terms of the percent change year over year for each budget. And you can see for 26, the revenue from ad valorem taxes. On the next page, page 81, you can see the ad valorem tax revenue that I just commented on. In terms of miscellaneous revenue, that's a combination of the interest revenue earned from our prime account and essentially income from rent to Guardian ad litem is included in that number. Then the other sources is essentially netting out fund balance in terms of the beginning fund balance, and then there's an adjustment that's made to get to roughly 7.4 in other sources. They essentially calculate for commitments that you still have on the books or anticipate you have on the books. And it's a way for them to not let people think they've got a full fund balance from the beginning of the year that's entirely available. And that number will fluctuate based on the time period that we look at. Next is Fund 101, so miscellaneous revenue from for grants and awards. Those are dissolved this year. There will be none for fiscal year 26. I think what's included in here has to do with ELC, BLI funding that goes away in fiscal year 25. That $360,000 roughly moves straight to the trust's bottom line to sustain that particular program. Under collaborative task forces, the only item that's in there, which should not be in there, is $62,500, which was the commitment we have in this year for the literacy initiative, $175,000 that was split among the county, the school board, and the trust. So we didn't include the county and the school board, yeah. And we need to remove our contribution because that won't be. We won't fund that. That actually shifts to literacy would be. So that the next time you see budget, that will be adjusted out. And then for capital fund project, I already commented on the $200,000 for capital outlay should it be required. Okay, so revenue is the easy one. Talk about expenses. So in terms of personnel expenses, we're in budget at $2.2 million. I think I commented it's roughly 10% increase over the fiscal year 25 amended budget. I had already commented on operating expenses is a little less than fiscal year 25. Grants and aid are up 1.6 million over the 25 fiscal year budget, and we'll talk some about that. Other uses, as a reminder, include a reserve that we carry by requirement is included in that number. And oh yes, and the remainder of the capital expenditure that you see, that's a transfer from our fund balance.
Into capital outlay down below, correct.
Exactly. I already commented if you drop down to, there are no Fund 101 grants and awards, the collaborative task forces, that 62.5 expenditure will go away. Capital outlay associated with capital projects. So we're right at 18.9 million as a total proposed budget for fiscal year 26. Next page just outlines the table of organization that you saw and just names the individuals that serve in each role. And I shaded the two new positions, one full-time administrative receptionist, and then a new position that's a part-time communications specialist, marketing and communications specialist. Okay.
13.5.
Yeah, here are the guts. So the first page is just a summary.
Sorry. One thing I also, Scott, and I don't know if you've done this or not, but a lot of this has been committed. Quantified, like how much are we actually uncommitted about?
I will narrate that and I can put a number to it, but I don't have the number today. So I think what you're referring to, I'll give an example. This is the last year of the current 2-year commitment for after school.
And it's like if we were to change that, we can't. Really change.
Yeah, so when I say that in fiscal year 25 is the last year
Oh,
of the
right.
2 years.
Okay.
So there's a pending RFP for fiscal year 26. That I think is an example of what you're referring to. And then we've got a mixed bag of programs that are annual, and I can comment on what those are, and programs that are in multi-year agreements and what stage they are in. We can't quantify that in a moment, but can give you some sense of.
This is a workshop, so you know, we're supposed to kind of workshop it, but one of my things I want you all to think about is committed, we're kind of committed. For the uncommitted, are we in the right buckets? And if we aren't, is there a plan to get them there, or is this really a preview to the strategic plan that we're changing the strategic plan? That's kind of my thought. Or both.
But it may be a little bit of both, because
Yeah.
we might end up looking, you know, we had a target of where we wanted to spend, what we thought. Start to look and to see, maybe those initial amounts may not have been sufficient, or we might need to see where they may. We still have the commitment to it, but it may be.
Well, I think the priorities that we set by how we understood the needs bucket areas. And so that understanding but so I think I'm a little concerned about finalizing anything until we have, as our understanding shifted. I understand the need to get budgets approved in a certain requirements, as long as we understand that that may not truly then reflect. It's a little cart before the horse, right? Strategic planning your budget should reflect the values of your plan, not vice versa.
But the thing is like, you know, when we did that, and Dr. Hart has her hands up. We came up with what we thought, how we set those percentages, right? But
That's what Chris was saying to me. It was a 3-year plan. So you're really talking about 27, right? Because we got to get through 26. It was supposed to be 23 through 26.
All right, Dr. Hart, and then we'll get into the presentation, and we'll do questions. Sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Hart.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I just wanted to reflect on the comment that Tina made there, and I think it was Maggie about the cart before the horse. And I've never been satisfied that we've put enough money into safety. And you've heard me yammer away on trauma in children's lives. What are we doing to address it, to make sure our programs are trauma responsive, not just trauma aware? And I'm always yammering about why can't we give more money to oh gosh, what is that organization that does all the interviews after children have been abused? And they can never use as much money as we would like to give them. So is there another vendor? Is there another program? I think we need to figure out ways to enhance the safety for children in our community, even if the few providers that we have can't manage all of it. I want us to be creative and thoughtful about that. And I just kind of agree that I don't want to lose our strategic plan to give that pillar, children and youth living in a safe community, a lot of emphasis. So you don't have to reflect on this, but I just want you to know that I'm never satisfied with the amount of money we spend on safety.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Hart. Commissioner Peace.
Thank you. You know, just looking at the budget. I don't really heard anybody else say it, but personally, I think, you know, in all of this, I've told you both. I think that numbers that we're talking about, should alarm all of us, because the amount that we're spending. approximately 600,000. Of that, which doesn't. Operating expenses. Of our fund balance and all other stuff. I don't know if y'all recognize this, but if we did this, if we do this budget, we will have 1.1 everything. And I know that what happens generally is people don't spend as much. I apologize. I can't,
No apologies.
well, I do apologize because I can't have a conversation outside. My friend, I think all of you, as we go through this process, we're bucks over on goal too. Talk that we wanted, and the strategic plan is only 2 years. And yet, we're more than double what we've allocated for goal. Personally, I don't think summer programs belong, and I don't know where you put summer programs because a summer program, there may be some percentage that it has an impact. I do not have a piece of paper by there. But that is not going to necessarily be something that is going to determine the success of a child. So perhaps something that we can discuss. But we are way over on that. And this is where I apologize, Kim. Had an opportunity to cut back, and then one person got up in front of it and we folded, if that's what we really want to do, then, and I think summer programs definitely play a role. But if we talk about, what is the phrase about the lake? Use, we want to change the lake or whatever.
Change the lake.
Okay, will a summer program change the lake, or will be spending literacy? Goal number one or whatever literacy is, because literacy, as far as I'm concerned, will determine whether a child, it will be successful at math. That is important. Summer camp, maybe not so much. It's something for children to do, but it isn't necessarily where we should focus what we're doing. So I think we need to evaluate this budget. I think it's cut, and I've got some ideas, but they're necessary, because if we do this, we're not gonna have any money. And I know we want to spend, we don't like having a fund balance, and we know the state like it, but hell, look at the state's fund balance. I mean, they've got billions in reserve. I know y'all get tired, and I know you get tired of hearing about this, but if we ever get a down economy, and if what's going, what they plan doesn't work, want to have some money to give people, and we won't have it.
So this is what the workshop is for, and I appreciate the input. It's really why I started with the way I started, which is of that goal to amount. What are we committed to versus not committed to? Because in anticipation of kind of this discussion, I think this year we have to think about making some tough choices, because I am anticipating next January 1st of 2026 not being an 08 or an 09 adjustment, but it's not going to be +7. It's going to be 1 or 2 or maybe a minus, and except for new construction. And I think we have to prepare for that. I don't have the same level of fear that you have, because I don't think we're going to spend as much fund balance as we're kind of budgeting to spend. But as far as right sizing our budget for the strategic plan, I'm with you. And I think there's no time like the present to do that.
I'm gonna agree with Lee on this. We've done this. I've often agreed with you on this issue. I think we've had the same conversation year over year around the fund balance, and are we being intentional about it, or are we just out there providing as many programs as possible? Because the need I mean, we've said this over and over, but we continue to act as if we want to meet all of the need. We know we can't, we know there's not enough money. And so what I'm looking for is if we have all of these programs that we're funding in areas that we know that we have to cut back, then I want to have a plan for how we make the decision about what gets dropped, because I think it is an essential that we have criteria by which we evaluate outcomes, including cost per child. Because there may be a program that has good outcomes similar to another, but their cost per child is
We just can't afford it.
way out of proportion. So what's the strategy in detail? How we decide what we cannot and will not fund because it's just not simply yielding the results. I think I agree with Dr. Hart, and maybe some of this summer program issue that you're raising, some of these programs may be more about safety. It may be about preventing kids from being on the street. Work through, because that's a danger in and of itself for some of these
So at
kids.
the last finance committee meeting you missed, that was actually the major topic we talked about, which is we're classifying this into making decisions.
Right.
And some of these are dual categories.
And mindful of the fact, this conversation, I think, is only going to get worse because we're seeing federal grants cut left, right, and in between for things like violence prevention, for things like this. So I think when we revisit the strategic plan, I think we, A, need to be sure we've got things in the right buckets. B, we need to have clear evaluation criteria. And we've come a long way. Again, I'm sort of like you. I don't want to diss any of the work that's been done because I think we've come a very long way in terms of evaluation criteria, but I'm still not seeing pure outcome. I'm still seeing a lot of process measures. I'm still seeing a lot of throughput kinds of focus as opposed to, but what is actually better at the end? So I think that without that, we're gonna get a lot of pushback, rightly so, from community programs that we say, well, what's your justification for this one versus mine?
All right, so why don't we let Scott kind of frame it and then we'll bring it back to the board to cut it up and dice it up and see where we want to go. I will make a point though, Lee, that if you look at the prior year, we were at 16.9 and we collected 10. Pretty consistently above what we collected.
But what's gonna happen there, what hopefully will happen, as I've told both Scott and Mark, is that you know, through this evolutionary process, as we go through the grants, we're gonna recognize that, you know, people are asking for too much. Amount that comes back should hopefully become less over time,
Right.
you know, as that's not something, you know.
All right, Scott.
Okay, page 85, which we're going to start off with goal 1. And so just to orient the discussion, the green that you see at the top under the proposed contracted budget 5.280850, that's the initial program funding. And then you'll see what the expenditures are by program. The two that are highlighted in blue there are just a reminder that those were a commitment on fund balance, fiscal year 24 fund balance that we made last year.
This is our 50% category.
This is our 50% category, that's correct. So that leaves the programming here in terms of expenditures leaves 1.7 million unspent, which clearly gets absorbed entirely in goal 2. Maybe just a way to comment earlier on what might be sunsetting here. The family resource centers, the two that are highlighted in blue, one's in year 3 of 3, the other's in year 2 of 2. So those are in 26, those will sunset. So maybe Lee, some way to think about this is that has an implication for 27's budget. So I'm back to kind of the narrative of having a 3-year horizon to pay attention to. I understand your reaction in looking at 26 and knowing that some of those don't recur, right? And you can see out in future years, might give you a little room to breathe and help inform the discussion about what are we going to start talking about now that we won't be able to return to based on what we see in the current year budget.
Yeah, please, go
The
ahead.
only thing I worry about, Scott, is on, you know, these programs, they may turn out are good programs, and
correct.
so we're gonna keep funding them, you know, so. Become available.
like for me, can I get?
Uh,
And I'm following what you're saying, Lee, as well as Maggie. And I think when I look here at this partnership of strong families, like this contract, to me, that is something that's been offloaded from the state to us. Local dollars.
Actually, federal. That was a federal change that prompted that.
Thought it was a state and they privatized stuff, but then like I see like this, the 185,000, that partnership of strong contract consultant contract, like we're helping them to meet their needs. Why are they charging us to pay that? Maybe I'm not understanding what that is, but I think we need to like really,
Say that again.
Wasn't that the one that was I think that was money that they were using to train other providers to do the program that
Yeah.
they had initiated and was successful. I think it was.
so to me, if they're training, we're paying people to do what the partnership, like they're in that family resource center space, right? And so we're funding the family resource centers and then they're charging us to train the people. We're helping them.
To train other entities.
No, but I'm just saying, why can't they eat
Yeah,
some of that?
and I just wanna make sure we're all clear. The first one, just to remind us, the community navigator piece that we funded. What changed was that the federal government used to allow Title IV dollars to be used for prevention. They changed that. And therefore, the Title IV dollars that partnership was getting, that they were using as prevention funding, Christine knows this better than I, to fund the family resource centers was no longer allowed to be used for that purpose. And so we went in and funded those because we did not want to lose that resource in the community. It wasn't that they lost even the funding, they just had to dedicate it to other things. Centers.
So what I fear happening, and I know we do have to make some adjustments. What I fear happening is since we have all these changes at the federal level, it's gonna be organizations like Partnership and those sucking up all the money. And then like little smaller people that are kind of out doing things. Yeah, who really have a connection with families. I don't know, I'm not saying we're there now, but I'm just wondering.
And I'm not advocating for
concerning
the
that-
consulting contract. I just want to make sure we're talking about a program, we all remember exactly what they were doing. But yeah, I think we've got some difficult choices that we're gonna have to make. I mean,
And if I may, I'll clarify that one of the reasons why we really wanted to work closely with them is because it's the grassroots organizations that they were able to train. So we are expanding the Family Resource Center reach by having them work with the smaller organizations to create. And then they move on with the expansion. Once we are no longer expanding the family resource centers throughout the county, that's where we're able to cut back on those dollars because they have fully trained them. Maybe it's a smaller contract because then they're just doing some. But that is why that contract came into play.
County is also looking at assisting community. Part of the discussion, oh, thank you. Part of the discussion we had with county staff was this is what we've been able to do. So they now may be able to work with partnership to do some of this work with the navigators to go out and.
I mean, I know we spoke at High Springs last week and that was one that was pre-identified. Those 3 TBDs, have we identified the cities?
We're working with the city of Hawthorne now, and then High Springs, we're in conversation with them. It's just that we have to talk about location and making sure that they have a location where they can support the family resource.
Any other cities?
I've been talking with partnership and they are looking at Archer. They just need a buy-in. She's been reaching out and hasn't been able to get anybody to bond. So they have really been trying to get into Archer, so we are having conversations. So right now is of course, the city of Hawthorne, High Springs, and Archer.
I would say Waldo is in desperate need as well, but
so.
they all are, they all are.
Yeah. I want to comment on something Tina just said, because I think there are times when capacity, access are going to compete. There are things you want to accomplish that you need. level of capacity existing. Then there are times when that organization needs to partner with one that has better access to the site and potential solving the problem. And I think that's a tension that we're gonna have. Think about some of these grassroots, small organizations that do.
They don't
some
have
of these-
capacity, partnership does.
Yeah, and that liaison, that ability to say, oh, partnership has a capacity to do certain things. Not have the connection in that community. If we can create a partnership where they train and build that capacity in an organization that's small, but has the actual connection and contact
Trust.
and trust, then I think we've accomplished a great thing. So I think we shouldn't dismiss outright bigness. Neither can we afford to dismiss connection. And I think that's a struggle we're gonna have, is to figure out how we can mesh those two to better leverage our money. And I think that contract, as you've sort of reminded me of some of the details of it, is a good leverage the capacity of an organization like partnership and connection and contact at a more local level to build credibility and trust for what.
I will add to that. I couldn't agree more. And I think the very beginning of establishing those resource centers in these cities, you know, they're setting up a clothing closet and they're feeding some people, but the need is so much greater where partnership can come in and say, and
Right.
this and this and this, and now they're off on a track to build their
Meet
capacity.
them where they are, but then
Meet 'em
add
where they are.
value add.
Yeah, so I agree, and I'm good with having that infrastructure capacity wise and partnership to help us with that, so. Scott, why don't we get into goal 2 and then goal 3, and then why don't we see if we want to move some of these shifts around on the, at the
Sure, okay. Goal 2. At the top, we lead off with our Business Leadership Institute initiatives and also the Child Care Tuition Assistance Program through ELC. Then you can see summer camp that we just wrapped up. The net of all of that is just over $2 million. So I mean, in line with the budget for the fiscal year. Followed by enrichment programming. Just as a footnote, this will be year 2 of 2 for enrichment. And then after-school programming, yeah, which is correct, it is,
On
Yes.
this sense, can you? Unfortunately, it's not.
Mhm.
Someone told what it is. for
Yes.
school, someone told.
for each of them, yes,
Stuff like that.
okay.
Can we call it those?
Yeah. Nicole, you want to take a swag at that? Good luck.
And I have a question too. If, or just to follow up, it would be helpful for the enrichment programs to know, or to actually for the summer camps or the after schools, which ones of them are receiving our sites for the enrichment. I'm assuming not every single after school or summer camp benefits from the enrichment. So it would be good to
But
just,
summer camps are just starting.
right,
Yeah.
but which ones, you know, who's
Taking advantage.
Thank you,
of-
thank you. English, helpful.
I understood what you were saying.
Thank you.
So who's leveraging?
Yeah,
Actually leveraging that enrichment, because again, if we've got a program, if that contributes to somebody's success, then that again is a,
Leadership, yeah.
On
And
page,
I think from, well, so it's back into the goal 1 versus goal 2. A lot of this goal 2 stuff, you could make an argument that it's goal 1. Go ahead, Scott.
sure, I'm on page 88 now. We've got summer programming for the 2 Freedom Schools. Hawthorne is slated to get started shortly and will be part of 26. We have a TBD for an additional neighborhood empowerment.
that was GEZ.
Oh, okay.
That was the commitment we made to GEZ this year. But remember, it was a 1-year commitment. So now it would roll to a new early learning center.
We've got the Gainesville Thrive, Gainesville Bridge included here. TWA Teens Work Alachua, just shy of $1 million.
I back to that, I will tell you, I spoke to Lawrence last week and he said the city of Alachua was asking if they can. Opportunity for the city. of
Try to give employers some.
So just as an aside to that, Tina, their CEO was here last week, 'cause today is Monday. It's all rolling together. And we had a conversation about that. We are going to be meeting a little later on in the summer to come up with a plan. Well, that literally, I just said, we're kind of capped at what we can put into teens work. But we want to grow the program. We want to serve as many kids as possible. And so he and I committed to bringing our teams together to talk about how we can do that, what that means, what that looks like. For instance, we have a fall leadership component to teens work. So we have the summer program, we have a fall program that kicks off in October for about 40 to 50 kids. They get the ready to work certification, certificate. Moving forward, do we roll those 40, 50 kids into the summer program so that the summer program is larger and we get more of the kids who apply in the summer enrolled in the program, and we get rid of the fall program? That's just one component. Know that we need more money. It can't just be additional money from the trust.
Yeah, like it's,
So-
even if it's 25%, you figure if we got a quarter of a percent of that.
And let me say this, because I'm really trying to toot the city of Gainesville's horn. The city of Gainesville came to us with some dollars and what, $78,000 that they were able to put in. So that was helpful for this year. And then Goodwill, putting more skin in the game, they were able to bring in 15 more students because that took some of that pressure off of them because there was additional funding coming in. So we're working on it. That was a long way around saying that.
How the city, what pressures on Goodwill? Is it just
Well-
with the demand for the program and them trying to manage?
They have to hire job coaches. It's additional, they're the ones who are providing the direct services to the kids and the businesses. So, yeah, it's their staff and their time as well.
I mean,
I think
I
not to
remember
get
at the
the dollar-
beginning of the program last year, I asked them directly, what are you doing in Jacksonville to leverage these public dollars? What ideas are you gonna bring back to us? And he said, we're working on it. Have we gotten any
So-
word of that answer?
Yeah, we talked about that actually, that specifically. I will say this, we had 310 last year, and Jacksonville has 100 kids in the program. So
330.
we had 3 last year, and last summer, they had 100. So their first year, we're right around the same amount of time with the program. Their first year, they had over 200 kids, and that was because of additional dollars. But now they're back to about 100 kids, with maybe 40 of them being year-round. So
So the businesses aren't going to contribute. That's the answer to that, from that data.
From that,
From-
I'm wondering if it's not, a thing to bring to.
I was at
Well,
class if you had.
there's been some initial conversations with the chamber, but that's why we're gonna bring the teams together to really talk about how we can go back and have a broader discussion about teams work. So more to come. But we're all on the same page in terms of we've capped out at how much we can put in.
Well, and we doubled it from the original.
Yeah.
If we all.
It's a big number, it's a million of the number.
Yeah, we had started out at 500, if you
It's a big
remember.
number. It's,
And you have to keep in mind, every year, the minimum wage changes.
yeah, it's going up.
And so
And
that.
the program becomes more popular and tell your.
It is
friends
very
about it.
popular. It really is. I mean, and
Sure.
you can see the benefit in the community from it. I had 2 parents to tell me they appreciated our support. because they had young men that they know they were just really struggling to keep them from that pool of doing anything illegal because they want to wear name brand sneakers. And she's like, I just don't have it.
Yes, yeah.
So, and so, I mean, it's worth the investment. I'm not saying that. It's just how will we be able to sustain it
Right.
and to keep going forward and to have more? I mean, we
And
got
to
300
increase-
kids because more kids are
That's
coming
it,
in.
to increase the number of,
Personally, I don't think there's anything probably that exemplifies more as the opportunity to be successful. That program, because it teaches life
Yeah,
skills,
so many schools, yeah.
how to have a job, how to communicate with people.
Showing up on time.
Do we know the average, amount of time that each kid gets in the program?
like the number of
For hours,
years.
you mean?
So it's 6 weeks?
Yes, it's a 6-week program, and they start, the working part is 6 weeks. The week prior, there are employability skill trainings that they're in during their. There are weekly trainings that they participate in. So it's about. 6
So,
weeks.
a question, and it's just a question, but if it were a 4-week program, you could provide it to 50% more people.
We
Is
talked,
that-
David and I talked about that too, but their feeling is the businesses for the amount of time and
onboarding,
investment that the
onboarding.
Really need
businesses
that.
have to
Yeah,
put
yeah,
in.
okay.
6 weeks is about the minimum that they are willing to do. So we did discuss that.
Just think about it, it's 21 days to even remotely begin to establish a habit. So 4 weeks at that age.
That'll do it. Yeah, okay. All right, Scott, keep going.
Sure. Following TWA is youth sports as a TBD at 200,000. Junior achievement, including East Side, an expanded site, for fiscal year 26. And funding for BizTown for fiscal year 26. And then literacy, which was a big contributor to this year's budget, 550 in fiscal year 26. And then Alachua County Amplify is added to that as well. So right at 8.1 total, including cost of living. So over by 4.4 million for gold.
Which I think literacy could be a goal one, as well. Okay, Nicole, do you got those totals for Mr. Pinkerton yet?
Hasn't found the file.
Then I wasn't on.
Okay, all right, keep going, Scott.
So on page 89, this will be goal 3. Mentoring programs, just a reminder, this will be year 2.
I think it was going away.
Was paused, but it's
So, yeah, but we just put
placeholder.
yeah, it's a placeholder.
But I thought what I heard was y'all were gonna study it and y'all were gonna come
Correct.
back with recommendations for.
Correct.
27.
That's what it-
2027.
Oh,
2027.
So, right, an RFP would come out late next year, right?
Correct. So
Yeah.
the placeholder is the capacity building, it is the listening sessions, it is trying to get experts to come to Alachua County for TA. That is what those dollars are for. So I think originally it may have been about $500,000. We reduced it to 200 so that we can have folks come in to do some training, really introduce national requirements of mentoring models, introducing them to what's supposed to work, and then coming back to you all based on, here's what we learned, here what the providers are saying, how can we move forward?
I think a lot of the mentoring programs. Evidence-based prevention for. I know of a lot of these organizations that don't even. Practice or evidence-based practice.
Youth safety initiative, so AMI Kids, gun violence initiative at $500,000, and then youth engagement. Cops and Burgers with the Alachua County Sheriff's Office. Total for goal 3 at 1.1, just over the program funding by 63,000. Followed by community capacity building and innovation grants. Center for Nonprofit Excellence, an increase of about 75,000 for them, specifically related to work they're doing on behalf of the trust in the community to build capacity. My Sidewalk is a recurring item of 3-year commitment. Interpreter services is through Language Line, and then youth development, capacity building, collaborative and training. So this is across multiple providers. You can see them listed out here in terms of the things looking to accomplish.
Call this Nancy's Meta.
What is
Got a program?
the gun violence initiative?
So last year, the trust committed to $500,000 for gun violence. And we split a contract between the city and the county for 1 year. Most of that contract got started January. So we want to continue for another year before we come back to you all with a recommendation on continue it or sunset it.
At GMV,
That's what the city is, the city is utilizing some of the money for some of their work with Impact GNV, but that is not what the total 500,000 is. The county, remember, the county has 2 youth, thank you, I was gonna say some leadership summits, but 2 youth councils that they're getting in the county. So they're working on that. They also, the city is also having those technology hubs, remember, with the computers. So the city has 200 and something thousand, the county has. The county was able to put out a number of mini grants to organizations, I believe.
is this the initiative that Santa Fe is overseeing? Are they?
Santa Fe is the
Work?
convener of the alliance.
But it moved to the city.
Oh, that's right, it did move to the city.
Initially it was Santa Fe, but it moved back to the city.
But Santa Fe is a partner.
Opportunity to circle, guys.
Nicole, I found it. You won't find it.
The challenge.
I don't know that I fully understand exactly what the objectives are, how this is monitored, how the outcomes are studied, or a lot, it's, 500,000.
Similar conversation that this board had with,
The health department.
Right. I will say that, they will be coming here, both the county and, the city, to present what they have done thus far. That is at the August meeting.
Again, it's a cart horse thing. We're gonna have a strategic planning meeting in July, and we're not gonna really hear about a $500,000 commitment until August.
Well, we can always do a budget adjustment, or if we move it around, we can.
This is a
make
proposed, I'm sorry.
a workshop. That's
Yeah.
here. To me, I think what we get out of today is let's identify areas that are flagging prior to the final budget. And this is one of them for me. So, like,
Big,
Well, I
Show
mean,
us, show us what you've done and why you should get another $500,000 next year.
I can certainly speak to what I'm seeing on a daily and weekly.
Tell us.
In the court system,
Yeah.
there's an uptick in gun violence. I used to see gun cases maybe once a year as a prosecutor. As a judge, it was the exception rather than the rule. Longer the case.
Would argue that more funding would be needed. It's just, what are you doing?
But what are you doing with the funding? I don't know if I have a youth or their family in front of me. I have nowhere to point them as far as this $500,000. I would like to be able to say, well, this is a access or a service that you can access that may be beneficial. I'm not seeing that. I don't know enough about it because I wasn't on board when this was.
I think a lot of this is
before the
for
trust, but-
prevention and,
Right.
Programs.
yeah, they don't have, yeah, it's.
An observation.
Good one.
Lee, real quick, you want some numbers?
All right, go ahead.
Those which page?
Page 86 for after, I'm sorry, summer camp. Summer camp's 2,101,000.
2,101,000.
Next page is,
25%.
next page is enrichment programming, 847,520.
800.
Yep, 520. After school programming, 1,294,500. Happy to give you any other subtotals if you want.
And Scott, after school and enrichment program is committed, is a 3-year commitment?
Enrichment, 26 is year 2 of 2.
Right.
After school ends this year and there's a proposed RFP going into fiscal year.
Lem-
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, let me just correct that. After school ends this year, but due to the literacy, we propose to fund it for 1 more year so that the assessment and the committee can help us determine what type of changes needed to be included after school RFP for fiscal year 26.
So summer camp and enrichment is committed through fiscal year 26. This budget, what we're looking at. 20, and then after school program is committed to 25, but we're proposing to add 1 more year.
And then the other two, those, the business, the BLI, early learning and Episcopal services, that adds up to.
I really want to just say this, like when we're talking about throwing good money, I want us to be really, really careful. And Lee, you and I we won't see eye to eye on this, I know, but of wanting to really judge after school programs. We have got to lean in on the district. The district is the educator. They got the kids 6 hours. So to me, the after schoolers or whatever they do, that is a supplement. And that's more safety, and that can be part of what the academic enrichment. I mean, I'm just gonna tell you. What AIM does, they do have an academic focus, but it is very hard to do in an hour and a half or 2 hours, what really should be done in a 6 hours. I think that's unfair to put that type of pressure on them to think that, that we've got to, in order for their funding to be contingent or us to be okay with that, to say they've got to show outcomes. I just do. And I think our literacy initiatives, when we convene the campaign for grade level reading, I was started when that first was created here. But we discovered is there are a lot of awareness type programs. Awareness type programs don't impact literacy positively. That's what the lady, I can't think of her name, I can see her face.
That was at the last meeting?
No, the lady who convened the Florida grade level reading campaign
Oh, Jen.
Jen, that's it, Jen, yeah. So we really, so we've got to make sure that what we're doing or what we're funding in order to see outcomes, that it is really getting down to the brass tacks of it. Just putting books in the home is not going to improve kids' literacy. It's not. I mean, she said that is, and when we did the mapping of our county and the resources, we're very rich and have a lot of programs that are awareness type. But they're not any that are very few that making sure that they've got those foundational literacy skills and then building them up. I think people probably one of. So I think we really should be really, really careful in pouring that in. There were that through Lassinger, I have this program. It was kind of like a work study type thing where they train the tutors, the school. I mean, doing something, a Mary Read or read something like that, right? When I first came on the board, they were trying to get us, like the first wave of COVID money, to fund an extra person so they could deploy. Because she was saying, if I can get at like $75,000, I can hire a person to oversee more people and we can serve more kids. And that's something that really does have a positive impact. But just funding the Dolly Parton Library, although I love the concept, that is not really what's going to move this needle.
Sort of back to my contention about if somebody's gonna apply for our funding, we need to, what is it you're trying to accomplish as an organization? Your theory of change, what evidence do you have that that actually works? Show us some outcomes at the end that have to do with what you said you were gonna change. And there is not a lot of change that's gonna happen in a summer camp. Which is, it's just not. You're not gonna get a kid to, jump a ton of you're just not. So what is it that you're trying to accomplish for these kids with this? Not just after, I want to fund a summer camp. That's not.
Like we're committed through this next fiscal year. I feel like this has really got to get honed in on the strategic. 2.1 plus the Freedom School, 210.3 million of our 8 million.
What are you talking about?
Summertime. And
Yeah, they're 3 years. So
Yeah, I'm
we're
talking about
looking at
after school.
3 years for summer
We
camp.
just renewed them.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah,
Some are
summer's
3
3 years, the
so-
after school is the 2.
Correct.
And I'm saying the after school being able to impact literacy,
Hey, Tina?
I'm just saying with us,
After school and enrichment?
it's not that it's not needed, because if we don't have these kids positively
Engaged.
engaged, she gonna see more of them,
Right.
right?
There might be
So
negative.
whereas they may not be doing the academic, all of them academic enrichment, or enough that you're gonna be able to like hone in and say they're doing X, Y, and Z. I
Middle
mean,
school is 25, 6, and 7. this year.
Correct. Correct.
That's why I frankly, I see the summer programs in the
safety.
safety.
Yeah, I think it is
That is-
$80. Marcia, and then
I forgot.
Well, I just want,
Yeah,
I just
Chrissy,
want to say that
they
because
wanna
we got
move
a
it.
good chunk of money in literacy. And God knows I am like your literacy person. I support it. I just don't think that our investment is going to get us where we want to be.
Well, we're talking about cutting, a program that everybody agrees is effective, the teamwork program, and how we can shorten it instead of, how can we expand that?
right.
Yeah, no, we want it.
I think right now we're partially talking about, oh, do we just move you from this category from goal 1 to goal 3 or goal 2, and that ain't gonna save any money. But at least it begins to help us clarify what we're really accomplishing with these different programs. And is that really where we want to spend our money? If you're not gonna help with literacy, then you're not in what children learn, what they need. Maybe in community safety, and it may be that Nancy's right, and we needed to have put much more money in that bucket than we did. And so I think it does help to at least be clear about what bucket things belong in. It doesn't help us with the problem.
Right.
My friend over here keeps bringing up, and I keep saying he's right, which is that
The amount of money that we have to spend.
you're spending fund balance for recurring expenses instead of one-time expenses.
I do think that, I for some reason, I really think we gotta get our chamber involved, and I'm asking. Just invest a little bit. And we're developing their future workforce. So like I tell people, I participated in senior, you have heard me say this. I was 15 years old, what I learned there, along with my home training, but that job really set my course of how I work. Serious, I thought that lady was like Attila the Hun, but she was like here beforehand, you don't be running up in here, there was some skills that she taught me that
For life skills.
for life skills that have benefited me, and future employers have benefited from what I learned at that City of Gainesville job, participating with that. So I think if we get some buy-in from that, I do think that's a good program, and it keeps them out of her courtroom too.
Oh, yeah, having a job and having something to do.
Awesome.
Connecting work and money.
Okay, Marcia and then Christy.
Yeah, I think I remembered. Thank you. It was a comment on what Burton was saying about the after-school programs. I do think it's important, if we are committed to literacy, that if an organization is receiving funding from the trust, then they too should be committed to some form of literacy. Now, it doesn't have to look like a prescripted hour of this, and this. I think what we will need to do is determine what that needs to look like. But I do think it's incumbent upon us, similarly to what Judge Bullard was saying about gun violence. If these are things that we're really committing huge chunks of funding to, that we believe is going to change the lake, then all of our programs, if we fund you, you should be committed to these things as well.
I think we lean in still on the district because there are a couple organizations that have tried over the years to really work with the district so they can know how to help the kids, right? So our school district has to be committed to this, has to have the same commitment that we're going to play in the sandbox with everybody well
Yes.
and equip them because we're all partners in this.
And I do think we need to be mindful of the fact that literacy is not just reading.
Right.
Oh, math and
Right.
everything, yeah.
Literacy is much more. And so-
Financial literacy. I mean,
Yeah,
it's.
well, so if we're gonna ask these programs to contribute to literacy, that's fine. But I think that they should be allowed to say to us, this, we focus on this, which has this effect on literacy, even though it's not sitting with a book during the summer program or the after-school program and reading it. There are
Just
many.
asking the question will force a change in how they're.
Exactly.
I mean, the question I keep coming up with is every program that we're providing funding to, if you have African-American kids in your program, 2 out of 3 of them can't read at grade level. How are you connecting them to resources to change that? I'm not saying you have to change that. How are you helping identify and then connect them to other resources to help change that?
Are you making it clear to them that this is beneficial to them? Because if I don't think reading is gonna make a difference in my life.
Yeah, so I think that's what Marcia was saying, that I really like, that we're gonna be pushing our providers as part of the whole literacy initiative. That I think it's cool. So, hold on, Dr. Hart, we're gonna do, okay, Dr. Hart, and then back to the board. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so back to what Marcia was saying about if people are accepting our funding for after-school programming or summer programming, and we are committed to literacy improvement, and also we are committed to the safety of our community, some other things, not just literacy. I think we, as a trust, have the responsibility to provide the provider to our camps and our after-school programs. I don't think it's enough to say to the after-school program, to say to Girls Place, show us that you're working on literacy with your kids. What we want Girls Place, I'm just using them as an example,
Right.
because we have such a good relationship with them. What we're saying to Girls Place is we're going to provide you a provider, and we're telling you that you got to make space for them in your program. And then we as a trust have the responsibility to do, I don't know what kind of professional development, capacity building, or whatever to a meta program that will go around all the after school programs, that will have a bunch of people that will spread out to those after school programs on the subjects of whatever they're trained to do in either literacy or, I don't know, mentors or safety programming, whatever, the things that we really, really deeply care about. And I don't have a problem. I wish Christy would help me here. I don't have a problem with our summer providers or our after school providers. I think they're doing what they do best, but we need to do what we do best and help them by providing the provider to them and just saying, okay, you take our money, you're going to make time for this person to come in. And that's the meta programming concept that I keep kind of yammering about.
I think, Nancy, that for me though, that's easier said than done, especially in an after-school program where you only really have these kids for an hour and a half. I think in my mind, the way I think about it is, okay, you are, and just aces in motion for a minute because we know what they do.
Right,
Right. So what we can do is research for them. Okay, what do we know about sports related programming that can support literacy? Is there research out there that suggests that there are ways to teach kids sports that also support literacy? For example, are there ways to help them read diagrams that about how you aim your ball? And I'm just making this up because I don't play tennis. I'm a couch potato. So, but I think the idea is, how do we connect for them not how you embed a literacy program in your hour and a half program or your summer program, but how is it that your summer program can contribute to literacy if you just do these little things?
Probably Girls Place and AIM could help other providers because they're probably, I don't know about what the others, but I do know their academic enrichment and support is probably stronger than some of the other programs.
Some of our enrichment programs can also facilitate. Okay, Chrissy, do you have anything to add? Nope. Okay, members, so we've got 40 minutes. What do we want to do?
So can I suggest a first initial flag category? Expansions. Expansions, things that we want to expand. Red flag for, can we afford to expand it right now, given what we're trying to do and trying to rebalance our categories? I think there are several of those in here that for not inconsequential sums that we may can't do it yet. So one, it's a kind of low hanging fruit one.
Yeah, but where are we getting the money?
No, I'm saying we would red flag those
Yeah.
as put them in a parking lot as
Not now.
not commit to
Not
it.
now. Mhm.
Why don't you tell us before we do that, what are we committed to through 26 that we can't touch?
Yeah, what can't we touch? That's a good one.
Why don't we start there?
Do you want me to do that in goal, starting in goal two?
Starting in goal one.
So
Yeah.
I'm starting in goal one at the beginning. The Family Resource Centers, and Help Me Grow, as well as Saving Smiles and the Wellness Healthcare Navigator. Those are
Okay.
from RFP. Those are ones we cannot touch. I think based,
Family Resource Centers, Help Me
Centers.
Grow, Saving Smiles.
we could not reduce, or I'm sorry, not expand. You see, there are two under the Family Resource Centers that are to be determined because we're trying to expand to other municipalities. I'd like to not.
In my opinion, this is the goal that we're already underfunded.
They're underfunded, so
I'm not,
Okay, but it's a flag. We
that's the
don't,
flag, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything else.
So Family Resource Centers, Help Me Grow, Saving Smiles, Wellness Healthcare Navigator, we can't touch those.
Okay, goal 2.
Go to, summer camp, we're committed. Enrichment, we're committed.
Let me ask you a question. As far as the COLA, is that part of the contract?
The language.
It's not in the language? Thinking about money, and I understand that that's, COLA could be important, but what we're doing is we're guaranteeing these organizations that they have pay salaries from that base. Financing for 3 years.
Summer
Without-
camps.
Yeah.
Okay.
all of them, he's saying everything is the 3% because we're doing
COLA, not in the language, it's something,
We're voluntarily doing.
it's a guarantee that you have finance, we're financing you for 3 years. Self could save on the road, whether or not it would jeopardize the program, I don't know. And that would be a subject for.
also say to these programs that not eligible for more than 5% of what you actually drew down this year.
Yeah, that to me is a better suggestion. I mean, they're both great suggestions, but that is one that, yeah, that's one where we've given you the money, you haven't been able to utilize it. We're
You can request up to 105% of what you got this year, you actually drew down, because that gives you your COLA. So that you can staff, but it says if you weren't able to use all the money we gave you, you can't apply for you can't get the same amount next year.
But what if you have some type of extenuating circumstance where you thought you'd have an expenditure? I don't know what I was gonna say, but
Usually what happens is I couldn't hire the staff and that ain't a problem that's going away.
So to the degree you've got providers that are behind in invoicing, to have a sense of where they are in performance.
Might improve their invoicing skills.
It absolutely could improve their invoicing skills.
I would tell you, the
It also-
Department of Children and Family contracts, you had until this day and the end of the fiscal year, and if you, anything you had not invoiced, toodaloo.
Yeah. This year, that's October 15th, but that's after we will close budget for
Right.
the year.
Right, but,
We could do a forecast, right, based on, let's say.
and you better catch, if this forecast is wrong because you haven't invoiced us, you've got 10 days to get us your invoices.
You could do it through June, and that would be, 3/4 of a year as a guidepost.
And the good thing that addresses the other thing.
Really does.
There you go.
Really does. That's a great suggestion.
And
Okay, put that one.
that also will make a difference as far as fund balance.
It will. Tell me, Chrissy, on page 86, what about, the BLI, the child tuition assistance and the summer bridge for Head Start? Are those?
Lita's looking up, BLI and, Summer Bridge. She's looking those three up and then we'll come back to those.
BLI, is that some of the money that we got from?
We'll see, but not this year.
Not for
When-
this year.
Yeah, when, Scott talked about the additional revenue. We don't have that.
Program is already committed. After school program, we talked about it's not, but
Freedom School is committed.
neighborhood empowerment.
That is not
It
committed.
is not committed. Those,
About the enrichment, Ken? I think that the enrichment program as well as, these are the, I think it's gonna be imperative that I'll go and do your evaluation, that it's gonna be important because I think
What'd you say?
off, it may be a great program and stuff, but it's that.
so that is what we're doing. Matter of fact, we recently just terminated contracts, terminated enrichment contracts, and they are not included in our next fiscal year. So we are absolutely going through, every initiative, looking at, are they meeting the performance measures? Are they, offering the service the way, we intended for it to be offered? And if not, we are reducing funding amounts, we're terminating contracts. And so we are, doing that every year, regardless if they are in a multi-year contract.
These are the ones though that you have not committed.
These are the ones that we are committed to
All
funding.
right, circle neighborhood empowerment, that's not.
Yeah.
committed.
That is not committed. Dolly Parton is not committed. Peak literacy is one of the ones that works well. She's made some significant improvements. Our funding with her, that's one that is, I don't think on a multi-year contract, but it's doing well.
I was about to say, we should expand that.
We should, we should keep that one. Peak literacy.
Talked about Teens Work.
And we just talked about teams where we're committed to that. Youth sports, we're not committed to that.
What was the discussion about that?
So if you remember from the listening project, that was one of the reoccurring themes that families would like to see more opportunities for sports for their kids. This was also one of those that kind of dovetailed into the goal 3, potentially goal 2, depending upon what it was. Well, it could, right. So, we just haven't had the time to spend on getting it going.
Yeah, that one's a option.
Your
You
treatment?
know what, I think I didn't say this earlier, but what concerns me with the junior achievement, the 3D, it's an excellent program. I'm just wondering if we are stepping into a forbidden space. Because it's offered at the school. It's like we're paying junior achievement to offer programming at the school. That's what I'm wondering. That's what.
Do they get credit for it? Do they get class credit for it?
But we make sure we can't do that.
Yeah.
We can fund an organization to offer services at a school.
Okay.
Whether it's after school, whether it is.
And if it's
During the school day.
even if it becomes a class credit issue, it's not.
Not been told that we cannot do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Life skill thing.
Our attorney.
That guy right there. Oh.
Are we committed
That
there?
guy.
She said Bob. It's a lot of Bob. Sorry.
No, I'm.
I didn't know if you got a TA, somebody from.
No, our
you know.
attorney, Bob Swain, yes.
So we are committed to the east side. We were expanding to program site 2.
What about BizTown?
That was an expansion too.
Mark next to the east side.
What the check mark mean? Like we were committed, right?
Yeah.
In the literacy program, we're not gonna spend that money this year. Probably not gonna happen.
Oh, but we're committed to that one. Yeah.
But my point is.
Yeah, we won't, we
balance.
will not spend down 550,000, no.
Yeah, see, and I think that we need to, some of these are multi-year commitments that we know are gonna, and I think it would be helpful if, to be realistic about a budget figure, to say, what do we realistically think we're gonna, as opposed to the max.
Well, I mean, yes and no, that we have to, we committed to this and we budgeted for it, just like we have vacancies, we're committing on October 1st, knowing that even if they're hired mid-year, we're gonna have half that in the budget, but it's gonna come back.
There is a, I think, a historical trend that would be worth looking at of the total programmatic budget. What's the actual spend? Because my last estimate for fiscal year 25 is we will return 3 million to fund balance.
Yeah, see, and so, and so to me, then what that tells us, because we've now had the same pattern for several years, is that we've got people who are over contracted.
Okay, but that gets Lee right back to his number. We're now spending out what we're.
Not totally, but it's much
Much
better.
closer, it's a much better,
And I think if we put a recommendation out of this workshop to the board, whether it's this meeting at 4 or the next meeting, that we ask staff to bring back a recommendation by the providers that if you don't spend
105, you get 105% next
up
year.
to 105% of what you drew down this year.
Yeah, so are we amending contracts, or are we just creating a new policy that will force them? Not amending contracts, so that the,
It's just you're changing the amount, I'm assuming you've got that lovely club.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
And the fund, I'm assuming your contracts all read that you can, it's based on availability of funds.
we're passing a policy that if you do not spend down your money, you can.
that's language we can put in the new contracts. So that's just language that we can add to the contracts. It already has information in the contract that says, based on your expenditures and how you are spending your dollars, we will amend your contract halfway through and reduce. And then, we also look at the new contract. We look at
That
the
would
same
bring
thing.
down, if it's
Right.
even 2 million of the 3 million, that will automatically adjust our budget.
And Nancy has her hand up again.
Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, just two things. It takes me a while to get recognized, so I have to go backwards a little bit, but all the JA things I think are really interesting. But who funded them before us? Wasn't it Chamber of Commerce or someone else?
New program.
It's a new program.
Okay, well, let me just say
Well, no, no.
this.
I'm sorry.
Uh,
3DE is, but BizTown has been around for a number of years.
Right, and why do I think Chamber funded that? I just have this inkling that Chamber had something to do with it in past. And the reason I'm kind of honing in on that detail is that if we went to the Chamber of Commerce and said, we're spending this on 3DE at East Side, this on 3DE at another site, and this on BizTown, can you match this amount of money for summer work? Help us expand that program of summer work. Help us. We'll pay for this. Okay. We said we would, we will. But can't you guys cough up some more positions for children to work in the summer? I just think we need to go to Chamber and say, partner up, help us out. They have money. And as Marcia pointed out, they're the ones who benefit from these programs the most of preparing kids for the workplace and giving them all these skills.
If they come up with a match, we'll cover 25% or 50%.
Well, or make it a pseudo match, like we'll do this if you do that, same amount of money, right? So anyway, that was just my 2 cents, and I wanted to add something else, and I can't remember what it was now, but.
The only thing I was gonna add is, or maybe shift out at the, how much the 200. They've been allocated for the gun violence initiative that I don't know anything about.
Oh,
I think that's a commitment we already made, though.
It's a commitment,
Yeah.
but none of it has been allocated
Yeah.
as far as we just,
Yeah, it's a place, well, we need to hear more from them, and I think, to be honest, I personally, before I commit to 500,000 for that, want to hear what they're doing and what they're in a more detailed fashion before we commit the budget. Can we go back to goal one for a minute? Christy, all of the new home visitation, the access, we talked about the resource centers, but is everything above the blue line where the resource centers are, is that all open for?
They are not funded under RFPs. So that means that they are what we have considered continuation, and they are funded annually. That is what those programs mean.
That's what
Under goal
that's what
one.
children advocacy is classified.
That again?
I do want
Child
to,
advocacy. Could we also extend to that, the not drawing down over 100, because like with the newborn home nursing, theirs is just going also by that COLA. And we, the same suggestion that Maggie, I mean, they're gonna pull down as much, they're gonna eat as much as we give them. I know. That's how I'm classifying it. I don't know what they've done in the past. I mean, I don't have that in front of me. I haven't looked there, but
When you say what they've done in the past, what do you mean?
what they pulled down, the newborn home nursing and the, access program or whatever that is,
So access.
that's new, it looks like.
That is new. This will be, proposed budget will be their second year. The doula friendly initiative, this proposed budget will be the second year of funding for them. Flourish, it will be the third year, I believe. I have to check. Flourish Alachua is capacity building of local doulas. So we've increased the number of doulas available for families that basically may not be participating in the newborn home visiting program. That was why that program was designed. Belita's working with her research evaluation staff now to take a look at the impact, the return on investment of that program now that we're going into the third year in fiscal year 26.
I know PALS is, I hear a lot about it, a lot of good. Are they using all of their?
So what page is the Ken report on? We would have to look at that. I don't have that information right in front of me, but we can take a look at that. About 80%.
All of these programs, they're gonna have issues with staffing.
Mental
And
health.
that's the primary driver of whether or not they're gonna be able to draw down all of their dollars.
I thought PALS was at Shands, it was part of their.
It is, but they have to staff it separately. It's not part of their routine. Yeah.
well,
So same with the Child Advocacy Center. She's trying to hire an FTE and she's having a hard time, just like everybody else is having a hard time.
And we did reduce we reduced their funding with the commitment to have a conversation with her if she saw that she was able to then hire folks on. And that is CAC. So that funding was reduced.
Say, is it that she can't hire anybody because of pay, or is it just availability of staff?
She can't find people. She's got a very specialized set of requirements, which makes perfect sense. But the reality is that mental health people are hard as heck to find right now. Just in this, you got Reach, you got PALS, you got CAC, all of those are gonna be competing
Same people.
for the same people. And they may have issues with salary compared to some of the bigger health providers that can also provide a better fringe benefit package. So, I mean, UF Health ought to be able to do a good one, but no, PALS has to be self-supporting.
I do want to go back to also just to kind of echo the concerns that Member Certain raised on the Partnership for Strong Family Community Navigators. And again, I just don't know enough about the program. But when I hear closet and food pantry, but yet this large organization is providing training, again, the question is, to what end? I mean, I'm assuming they're not bringing in or funding a mental health
No.
counselor for those programs to be housed in the closet and food pantry. So then I would think that they would just refer them out to Meridian or some other resource.
Those two programs, the two partnership programs, one is to expand established resource centers. go out instead and provide that service at some other site.
So partnership then would come into the site and provide it.
And provide what they provide at the
Navigate.
center. And then, and the
A
second,
mobile resource.
mobile
center.
resource
Think
center.
about it like that.
and the other one is to help small organizations develop a resource center. So they consult with them to say, this is what you, A, B, C, D, and E, to do your own resource center. And once we've completed this training with you, we find another community that wants to develop their own the same way. They leverage what they already know how to do really, really well and bring that to communities that can't necessarily have that capacity to do that on their own. So it's really leveraging resources in a pretty
Programmatic.
cost-effective way.
In addition to.
Yeah, so they often will start with a food pantry because that's what that community says, well, we got a bunch of people who don't have any. Okay, here's how you set up a food pantry. Now I've taught, it's teaching them how to fish, is
Right.
kind of, if you will, that metaphor.
And that goes for the grassroots organization also, right? So they help them identify additional dollars to support the services that they're offering. And it does go beyond food and clothing. Most of the time we use that because that's the concrete support. That's what a lot of people need, but there is parental resiliency, there is relationship building. There's a lot more because they use those 5 protective factors. And so they are introducing the National Family Resource Center model to these grassroots organizations with the goal of making them sustainable.
And they have the kind of data I'd like to see. They
Have
have
their
it.
data. I can tell you just on another note too, just in terms of what I see as significant support in juvenile court on a regular basis on this list is PACE and Child Advocacy Center.
Yeah, yeah.
That I see on a daily.
What about the Wellness Healthcare Navigator?
We are committed
Yeah.
for 2 more years. That was through an RFP. And if I can go back to Go To real quick, the first 2 programs, Velocity, which is BLI, and childcare tuition assistance, as well as Summer Bridge. Those are annual programs that we are funding, not necessarily committed based on an RFP that was released. But we do know that Summer Bridge is seeing positive impact based on the last presentation that we were able to get from Bonnie for that program. Childcare tuition assistance, this is our 2nd year in that, and that is us helping Alice families who cannot.
Doesn't that get a match like it's 9-20 to 1?
There are a couple different match opportunities, couple different municipalities that are supporting the ELC in addition to our dollars and some funds that potentially come down from the state.
Okay, I circled 380,000 plus gun violence. Those are the numbers. That's about the only ones I've.
Well, I think the
And
bigger
COLA.
bag frankly is,
Nicola, and then what you said.
yeah, I think the bigger opportunity is
Yeah,
seeing
under
how much
5.
of this we're gonna actually.
Well, and Scott, in the next meeting, we're, getting into, where you go to see where they are and, where the different programs are. And
Having a 10 report.
about the 3-month to, some are 3 to 6 months lag. So, what's going on with that? I mean, is there something in the contract saying, that can't do that? It's not fair to y'all, meaning y'all, and it's not good for us from just where are we in funding? So. Some of them are,
Yeah, it's a sticky one. We have a combination of providers that are not current because the contract was executed late. Sometimes that's a mutual
right.
responsibility between us and them, although there's a handful of them that we have specifically spoken to say, we'll allow you to submit a quarterly invoice as a mechanism to get them caught up. And we've got a small handful of providers who consistently make the same mistakes, and in part why they're behind in invoicing, and 1 or 2 that are challenged to do it at all.
Well, here you go. There's 1, 2. Or they're at least 4 months behind on the first page, and there's
So what I like about that, that
Through.
they're behind, they're not saying we're behind.
Yeah.
And negatively impacting their cash flow, because we have had that. right?
And
We've had that. So-
what we are intentional about this year is we will not accept invoices after October 15th. It does not matter who you are, how loud you yell. So when they come and yell here, you cannot let them off the hook.
Cannot let them off the hook.
We have been pointing to it since November.
So is Maggie's motion something like we would move to ask staff to look at a policy to recommend to this board? And all providers that are receiving funding under a multi-year contract can only receive up to 105% of the October 15th of 2025.
That sounds fine. I think the challenge is we have to solve budget before
Right.
the end of October.
That we just bring, you've heard the idea, come back with something.
Yeah. So I can tell you how the state contracts work. Basically, what would be for us in July, contract managers started to call providers to say, you are now at 30%, you should be at 75%. We were about to amend your budget. Match your expenditure trend. And man, I'll tell you what, providers would scramble and suddenly there would be units and invoices, fine.
We have the
So-
capacity to do that though? I mean,
Uh,
looking at our staffing now and I see some big.
Well, but it's, so you just have to know, we might not be able to do anything quite that yet, but the notion being, if you're not keeping up, the other thing is when I did subcontracts, I would often put in there, if you have not sent me an invoice by the 15th of the month past the service delivery, you will not get paid for that. It's like fighting with insurance companies over clean claims. Any experience with that?
Lots. I think there's a couple of things we can look at to your point. So one of the ones that comes to mind immediately is what you're spending through June. And we can make an assumption that the last quarter you would spend the budgeted amount, and that would give us a way to understand where they would land and then make a calculation of 105%. I do think this would certainly get traction, I think, with the providers. We'll have to pay attention to some habits, which is to spend money to spend money. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily
that's what we don't want.
programmatic.
I didn't want to say it. I honestly, I was like, I don't want to be negative.
You have to have the.
Yeah, backup.
You have to have the backup documentation.
Yeah,
That's
of course,
why-
agree,
Yes. You
agree.
gotta tell me you had payroll expense, you didn't just,
Yeah, there would be maneuvers I would
Mhm.
expect from some providers.
You also have to remember, a big part of our budget hasn't even started yet. Summer.
right. Yeah, and that's part of the, reading this is always difficult because you don't know which provider starts their contract when. But
Yeah,
I,
15 minutes to bring recommendation out of this workshop. Thoughts?
Like Maggie's idea. And
and
you know,
then
come back.
and then come back and tell us what that number is. What that number brings all of this down to,
And maybe questions about the one, come back in our next, budget meetings. Talk to us about the ones that we've circled.
Here, motion? That we can, for the full board? Oh, we're not making a motion at the workshop.
I didn't workshop.
but I think
Well,
I think
you
there's
just voiced it
consensus.
though. Yeah, you just voiced it.
I think there's consensus. The other thing I would say is any of these that are kind of pilotish initiatives that funding to, but we don't have a set program to yet. What if we, it's from the outset, say these are fund balance investments rather than any sense of it being part of our continuing budget? They're one time for right now, even if it's a couple year, but they're one time, so it begins to get us to a plan for the fund balance. That, but keeps it out of what we would consider our regular operating budget.
Oh, repeatedly, it's a 1 year.
They're gonna come back and have a meeting. But you know what's really odd? That I was looking at when I'm thinking of what you're saying. Maggie, when I'm looking at some of these, whether it's in Richmond, I know, and some of the after school that are those that are current, Not many of them are over 50% of their budget. Like in enrichment,
Say that, I'm sorry, Tina.
those that are current
In
in
enrichment,
enrichment, I don't see one, I see one that's two that are over 50% of their budget. The first two in there, in the thing,
Where the money's gonna come back.
right, 66% and 59%, and they say they're current.
That's about right, because we're
Yeah.
we're 7 months in, but you're now getting in the invoices for.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. You know what? Please forgive me.
No, I
The
would-
School district fiscal year is June 30th.
okay.
I gotta refocus.
Trust me, I have to do the same thing all the time.
A lot of them are gonna come
July
to the,
June 30.
to the summer camps. A lot of.
Right, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking the year end is ending the end of this month. I'm
No.
sorry. That's what
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was. I'm sorry.
And I'm thrilled to see a bunch of them at
Like,
50%.
right, and I know this is September 30th, but I was sitting here making that assumption. I'm sorry.
What I've heard is the 105. What I've heard is look at COLA, and what I've heard is look at the ones we circled. The ones we circled, Christie, do you wanna give those to me, or do you want me to give you what I said? Starting with gun violence.
But I would
Go
just
back-
push
you go-
those out.
let's go back-
As a
let's go back
separate
down.
category.
Oh, okay.
My goal.
Not my goal.
Coordinate
I don't
goal.
have any on goal one.
Better, I'm sorry, which way are you going? You don't have any,
So goal one,
versus
everything's
everything's
good.
fine.
Okay, goal
On
two.
goal two, I have neighborhood empowerment, Dolly Parton, youth sports.
Yeah.
Junior achievement, 3D program, and BizTown. Goal three, I have gun violence.
Oh, wait, you kept youth sports?
No.
Okay.
It's also.
I missed it then. Okay, I had.
I'm sorry, empowerment.
Yes.
Yeah, I said it. Youth empowerment, Dolly Parton, youth sports, junior achievement, the bottom two. And then, I don't know what we said about Alachua County Amplify.
We want to keep.
We're committed, yeah.
but I would say the literacy community supports and the gun violence pull out of an operating budget or a regular budget. Those are
I got
One
you.
time thing.
one-time fund balance.
balance.
Move those out of our regular expenditure to a fund balance plan.
Yeah, the difference is we're
Literacy
committed
and
to
gun
the
violence.
gun violence.
Maybe committed to them, right, or we may be committed to them, but they don't necessarily have to be, we can deliberately say these are coming out of fund balance once we know we're gonna have one.
And also mentoring, we're committed mentoring. That's another.
Circle mentoring. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
She explained it,
Yeah,
that
but-
that's a placeholder for.
yeah, to Lee's point though, I mean, goal and to Matt and to
We can, yeah,
Point,
we
I
can
mean-
look, it's, we're not gonna spend too.
goal three and goal one.
Right, that's what yeah, so I think let's get realistic.
Yeah.
Then I think we need the discipline as a board not to respond to crying and begging at the podium.
And threatening.
Threatening.
That was the meeting I missed, was that the meeting? I
Well-
missed?
And I know I
So,
wasn't here, but
do you wanna say?
I read the minutes.
delusional?
No, I mean, I voted, I think I voted for it. Yeah, Mark.
did.
I'd just like to
I
say,
did too.
I think,
No, I didn't. Remember, I made a three-part thing and had that separated
Oh,
out.
yeah.
I think what will be important, at least my takeaway from that meeting, because it kind of, in my tenure, was the most contentious we've had, if you call that contentious. Is that fund balance, and I think what I heard you all say today will help tell that story. This is also why Scott wanted us to kind of lay out the budget in the way that we did. We are using fund balance. It's not just sitting there. We are committing dollars from our reserve, if you will, every single year. Whether we should be doing that or not is a different discussion. But for the community and the perception, it is important that we say that. And so I think this discussion today will be helpful in how we message moving forward. I wanted to say, thank you all for that.
Budget blows fund balance.
Yeah.
out of the water.
Not much different from last year.
Yeah,
Really not, I mean, which blew it out of the water too, it's just, I think we're going to find that, going to be similar to the prior years where much of that is not utilized. I think to Marcia's point, when the community says you have all this money that you're not using, we are budgeting to use fund balance, have historically every year. All right, anything else before we open it up for public comment? I want to give plenty of time for that and also a 5-minute potty break.
Break.
Yeah, I got a break, I got it.
Anything else? Nancy, you have anything? No, okay. Everybody good here? All right, we'll go ahead and conclude the workshop on the tentative budget. Next, open up for general public comments. Vice. We are adjourned until 4.
Did that help? Did that help you?
That was great.
This is great.
I listened the whole way over. That was great.
Really great.
I couldn't get on.
Great that we got some.
Open.
Okay. For the resolutions, because we realized at 9 o'clock the next day
I
that we
see.
did not list it
Okay,
there,
I'm
but
with you.
we wrote it in his
I
script.
was over here panicking.
Because we have to pass the resolution for the budget in the village.
We're gonna do that today.
Right.
It just didn't
But
see-
we
I
put
didn't
it in
see it in the
your-
agenda.
We put it on your agenda. Not in, it wasn't on
In
the
the board
board agenda, but the
That's why I was
resolutions were in
wondering.
there, yes. So we're good. All right, bathroom.